So kind of like holding the mic. We're going to hold the mic. Welcome to a new content series called Road Stories, right? So the whole concept of this is we're going to interview ourselves, our fellow adventurers, pretty much anybody that's got a cool travel story, where we want to hear what is the wildest, craziest, funniest, most sideways, backwards story from the road that happened out of complete happenstance. You know, these things happen, especially when you go out, you travel. Something's going to go wrong, or something's going to be wild or crazy or just so purely beautiful because it was random and it wasn't planned. And those stories are the best stories. That's why we actually adventure, right? We go out on the road because we want to go experience life to the fullest, and we want some crazy stuff to happen. Oh, maybe we don't want that to happen, but it inherently happens. That's kind of the draw of going out and traveling. That's why we do it, to go have these wild experiences, right? So we are producing, it's going to be a YouTube series at the Adventure Fam Dam YouTube channel, and we're also going to make it into a podcast for those who just want to listen to these stories while they are on the road and can't actually watch on the YouTube channel. So welcome to the Road Stories podcast by Adventure Fam Dam. I am your host, William, from Adventure Fam Dam. Also find me at Adventure Fam Dad on Instagram to follow along the journey. So this is going to be episode 1. And in episode 1, what I thought would be fun, nailed it, was to tell my adventure story. Now, I'm also going to tell another story that will be exclusive to our Patreon account because I think it's incriminating. It involves me bribing a immigration officer in Mexico. So if you want to hear that story, go to our Patreon account and subscribe for $1 a month. And you can hear that incriminating story over there. But let's hop into my road story. So this story isn't that crazy, but I think it's one of those things that like makes adventuring awesome, or at least for me, it made our trip through Mexico last winter awesome. So if you're not aware, our former RV was a 1999 Tioga 22C that we had converted into a 4x4 and lifted. So it had a 6-inch lift. It was on 37s. And it was a 4x4 conversion. It had Dana 70 axles front and rear. It was done by a gentleman named Zach at Continental Conversions in Golden, Colorado. If you've seen some of our content about that rig, you know that story. But basically, it was a totally custom drivetrain. And this has nothing to say ill about Zach's work. It's just we drove the actual wheels off of that rig. That's another story that we'll be telling later. And so we're in Mexico, and then we had ferried the RV over to Mazatlan, and we're now on mainland Mexico in our trip. So we've put probably 25 to 30,000 miles on this thing. And we're literally just driving down the road at this point. We're not even on a crazy Jeep road, or we're not 4x or anything. And there's a guy behind me, and it's wild in Mexico. The way that you drive is like, it's a free for all. Like it's a 2-lane highway. People treat it like a 4-lane highway. If you're going slow, you literally just drive on the shoulder and everyone goes around you. It's crazy. But you get used to it. And so I got used to just driving on the shoulder because we're in an RV. We don't go very fast. And there's this guy behind me, and he's like flashing his high beams at me and the whole thing. And I think he's just trying to get around me. And so I kind of just like pull over, and I'm like, all right, like go around. And he doesn't. He just gets behind me, and he's still flashing his beams. So I just decided to pull over on the road and like kind of see what's going on. It could be sketchy because, you know, multiple times we got pulled over by police or federales or people in unmarked trucks wearing army fatigues, and you just have to kind of like pay we call it a gringo tax. So I was like, shit, this guy's pulling me over, and I'm going to have to pay the gringo tax and the whole thing. So I'm getting ready to like pay my bribe or whatever. And no, he genuine dude hops out of the car, and he's like, there's sparks coming out from under your RV. Like it looks like you're about to explode. And I was like, oh, no, okay. And I look under, and our anti-sway bar on our front axle is literally dangling off of the truck. And so we're like, it's like, holy shit, how long has this been going for? And I get under there and I'm trying to figure it out. And I'm like, oh, so what had happened is the bolt had vibrated out and the mount where the anti-sway bar connected to the front axle had literally vibrated off. And so and this was like crazy that this happened. We were so lucky. Like we actually had the piece of the mount we got to, we kept. So we actually had the mount still, but the weld had literally sheared off. Also, we were on the way to Puerto Vallarta to get onto an airplane because we were flying from PV to Lucia in the Caribbean for a wedding. So we were literally like on the way to go catch a flight, right? So it's like, shit, we can't deal with this right now. We literally like limp our way to the airport, get on our plane, do our wedding, come back, and then limp from Puerto Vallarta back to San Pancho, which is about like an hour north. So that entire drive was just like white knuckling there and back because I was just so afraid like something was going to happen. Anti-sway bar isn't necessarily a purely essential part, but it does make the front end very washy. It makes it very hard to steer. And we're driving we're driving a big RV. And so like steering like this the whole time and kind of like feeling like you're not really in control is just, it's nerve wracking. It really was okay. It just feels bad. So anyway, we get back to San Pancho and I start looking up, welding shops locally, like who in the area can weld this anti-sway bar mount back onto our rig so we can effectively reassemble our front end and carry on with our adventure. So where we stayed in San Pancho is basically what anyone would consider a homeless encampment. Broken down RVs. There were people that would come and go in their campers. But like in America, if you saw this on the side of the road, you'd be like, that is a homeless encampment. Down there, it is actually a bunch of merchants that we lived next to this guy, Danny, who is a jeweler. And come to find out, when I started asking around town, like, hey, does anybody know a welder? There was a guy named Juan Pablo who had taken a tour bus and literally converted it into a metal shop. He was rebuilding a 67 Thunderbird in there. He had 4 or 5 motorcycles that he had broken down, and he was rebuilding the engines and like basically doing a bunch of, vintage rebuild motorcycles and cars. And lo and behold, he's got a welder. And he literally he didn't speak a word of English. So I speak a little bit of Spanish, and my broken Spanish was enough to basically I held up the mount and I pointed at the axle. I was like, "Esto estás necesita ahí." And he was like, "Got it." And it all clicked and we all got it. And basically he told me, he was like, "Hey, leave the rig, you and your family go get lunch, disconnect all the batteries, all welded on, and then we'll just go from there." And literally so there was a basketball court and a soccer field and then this parking lot of RVs and people who had basically made makeshift homes. And so what I did is I pulled the RV onto the basketball court. So it was perfectly level. He goes over there, welds the thing on. I get all my bolts and assemblies. I go to the hardware store in town and I get new bolts and everything else and Loctite to reassemble this thing. Put it all back together and it was great. It worked totally fine. And the guy, Juan Pablo, I was like, how much, mate? And I'm expecting to give him hundreds of dollars in US money, right? Cause that's probably what it would have cost to have that done in the States. Down in Mexico, he charged me, I think it was 100 pesos for this guy to re-weld our entire front end back together. And he was like, oh, I actually touched up a couple of other welds and I double checked this and da-da-da-da-da. And this guy literally lives in a tour bus that hasn't seen the road in probably 20 years. So he's effectively in America, what you would call homeless. But he's got his little shop and he's got his welder and he had a lovely girlfriend and they live a lovely life down in San Pancho. And it was one of those there are good people everywhere moments. And when you're in need, if you ask around a little bit while you're traveling, you'll typically find someone to help you out no matter what. And so, yeah, we were in San Pancho. We broke our anti-sway bar off of our front axle. We found this guy randomly in this place, and he put it back together for us and helped us out. And that was solid. That even in our accident in Colorado that happened months and months later, all the work that he had done for us held together. And it was. I was expecting to, spend a lot of time, energy, and effort trying to fix this thing, and this guy that literally was living next to us that we hadn't met for the month that we were down there helped us out, and he became a good friend. I would go over there and we would have broken Spanish conversations about engines, and he had a Honda CB 750 that he was fixing up. That was the first motorcycle that I owned when I was younger, in my 20s, and he was a lovely man, and he was truly just grateful to have another gearhead to talk to at the end of the day. So yeah, that was one of the wilder and crazier stories that we had, where things went completely sideways, and there's lovely people everywhere, and we got helped out and everything got fixed. So yeah, that's my road story. This is the intro to Road Stories. I hope that was captivating enough for you to follow along. I'm going to interview Emily next, what her road story is, and then we're actually going out to the Vail Mountain Games in a couple of weeks, and we're going to do an episode out there, and we're going to have a couple of other road stories from some people we're going to be talking to out in Colorado, and we're just going to keep doing this as we go along. Everyone we meet, maybe I'll go back down to San Pancho or meet up with Juan Pablo, and we'll get his road story, because I'm sure he's got some crazy stories out there, and Danny, the jeweler that lived next to us, and everyone else we've met on the road, and yeah, it'll be fun. So stick along. Also, if you have a road story and you want to get interviewed and you want to tell your story, by all means, reach out. I'm happy to do a Zoom call interview with you guys as well. So here we are. Anyway, thanks for following along. William, we're the Adventure Fam Dam. You know what to do. Like, subscribe, share, the whole thing. You've had, social media forever. You get it. And check out some of our more, we'll call them potentially incriminating stories over at our Patreon account. Check that out. Thanks for following along. This is Road Stories with Adventure Fam Dam, signing off.